If I didn't already do that. Two tails, one head. Yang yang. Heart chakra singing bowl. Third eye. Two heads, one tail, yang yin. Root. Two heads, one tail, yang yin. Knocked into this, so maybe show some groovy guy. All right. 2 tails, 1 head, yang yang. Two heads, 1 tail, yang yin. Two heads, 1 tail, yang yin. Hilary Barrett has written a commentary on the I Ching called Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future. We will use it for its wonderful introductions and find out our trigrams. Our bottom trigram and our top trigram are solid, broken, broken. Or you could say whole, open, open, which I believe is Zen Thunder. Thunder is shock, upheaval, and the spark of the new. In old Chinese belief, thunder slept in the earth over winter and erupted from it in spring, awakening living things into new growth. Thunder is our basic drive for renewal. He inspires initiative and decisive action. He is the stimulus that sets things in motion. He is the eldest son in the Trigram family, the first connection of heaven, potential, with earth, realization. Yang makes itself known here, emerging into the field and beginning to grow. Thunder belongs to the east and to spring. Zen Thunder above Zen Thunder gives us the hexagram 51. Our definitions, or titles rather, we will be getting from the Taoist I Ching by I-ming. He wrote it in 1796 as a Taoist adept, and it's been translated by Thomas Cleary. Hmm. 51 is called Thunder, practicing introspection in action. When we consult the oracle, when we ask a question of the I Ching, that question will have the general context of how can I act in creative relation with the spirits or forces shaping this moment in time. We will start by reading Hilary Barrett's introductory I Ching commentary. She calls Hexagram 51 shock. Key questions: what must change? What will continue? Oracle, shock, creating success. Shock comes, fear and terror. Laughing words, shrieking and yelling. Shock spreads fear for 100 miles. Someone does not lose the sacred ladle and libation. Cool dragon. Shocking. Don't be sacrilegious. Shock is something that stirs, rouses, and shakes you up, like an earthquake or a violent thunderstorm. In ancient China, heaven spoke through thunder, and this was an omen that the human world was to be brought back into harmony. Abruptly, your world is not working as you expect. The solid ground shifts under your feet, security slips away, and mental constructs shatter. Living reality has spoken. Shock spreads out in waves of contagious fear and hysteria. Suddenly, everyone is all too closely in touch with their own emotions and with everyone else's, and all are reacting to one another. It is a time to hold on to what you must. It is a time to hold on to what you most value, and take on responsibility for keeping it safe through the upheaval, like the priest who is charged with safeguarding the temple and altars from the past for the future. Consider what remains constant and true when everything else is in turmoil. This doesn't necessarily mean resisting the shock itself, so much as keeping a still point in the midst of the tumult of reactions to it. Then you never lose your connection with the creative power that speaks through the storms. Image. Rolling thunder, shock. A noble one in fear and dread sets things in order and is watchful. When the outer world is shaken up, the noble one is also inwardly shaken. He is wide awake now, quivering with awareness of the changes underway, and ready to take on responsibility for restoring life to harmony. Sequence. Shock follows from Hexagram 50, the vessel. In the charge of the sacred vessel, none equals the eldest son, and so shock follows. Shock means new beginnings. In the family of Trigrams, thunder is the first son of heaven and earth, entrusted with the sacred vessel. As the old is overthrown and the new embraced, he stands at the gates and opens them to the new time. This brings both the emotional experience of shock and also the awareness of a sacred connection that continues and is renewed through upheaval. Pair. Shock forms a pair with Hexagram 52, stilling. Shock begins, stilling stops. Hexagram 51 sets things in motion, and Hexagram 52 stills them. You are at a time of stirring and opening, yet the one who does not lose the ladle and libation is already keeping still. We'll now turn to James Dekorne's take on Hexagram 51. He is a practitioner of the Tao himself. He's compiled several commentaries in one place. I've left the link to his Gnostic Book of Changes that contains some of his editor's notes, which are also lucid and profound, and quotes from things like the Kabbalah in the description box below. Wow, that was a sentence. Shock/thunder is what he calls Hexagram 51. Other titles might be the arousing, thunder, the symbol of startling movement. Shake, the beginning of movement. Shocking, the thunderclap. Action, motion, sudden change, surprise. Quote from D.F. Hook, the necessity to keep tranquil in the midst of upheaval. Judgment, leg. Shock intimates ease and development. When the time of movement, which it indicates, comes, the subject of the hexagram will be found looking out with apprehension and yet smiling and talking cheerfully. When the movement, like a crash of thunder, terrifies all within 100 miles, he will be like the sincere worshiper who is not startled into dropping his ladle and cup of sacrificial spirits. Wilhelm/Baines, shock brings success. Shock comes, oh, oh. Laughing words, ha, ha. The shock terrifies for 100 miles, and he does not let fall the sacrificial spoon and chalice. Blowfold, thunder, success. Thunder comes with a terrible noise, laughing and shouting in awesome glee and frightening people for 100 miles around. The sacrificial wine is not spilled. This suggests that the holder of the sacrificial vessel is not easily alarmed, or else that he is very wise and able to distinguish between the apparently dangerous and the truly dangerous. Lu, thunder, success. Thunder comes, ho, ho, speaking and laughing, ha, ha. It shocks and terrifies for 100 miles, but one does not drop the spoon or chalice. Sorry, that was very similar to the other one. Ritzema/Karcher, shake, growing. Shake coming, frightening, frightening. Laughing words, shrieking, shrieking. Shake, scaring 100 miles, not losing the ladle, the libation. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of a disturbing and inspiring shock. It emphasizes that rousing things to new activity, the action of shake, is the adequate way to handle it. To be in accord with the time you are told to, stir things up. Slofnacy, thunder, receipt, thunder comes so renewingly. Laughter and talk, ya ya. Thunder alarms 100 miles, not losing the ladle or goblet. Yep. Okay. Wu, motion, indicates pervasiveness. When motion comes, it frightens people. Later, it makes people talk and laugh. Its majesty reaches 100 li in all directions. There is no misplacement of the ladle or sacrificial wine. The image, leg. The image of thunder being repeated forms shock. The superior man, in accordance with this, is fearful and apprehensive, cultivates his virtue, and examines his faults. Wilhelm/Baines, thunder repeated, the image of shock. Thus, in fear and trembling, the superior man sets his life in order and examines himself. Blowfold, this hexagram symbolizes continuous thunder. The superior man in fear and trembling seeks to improve himself. Lu, thunder doubled, symbolizes shock. The superior man contemplates himself with fear and caution. Ritzema/Karcher, reiterated thunder, shake. A Chun-Tzu, or chief son or superior person, uses anxious fearing to adjust inspecting. Wu, one thunderclap after another constitutes hexagram motion. Thus, the Chun-Tzu, or chief son or superior person, reflects and rectifies for fear of being wrong. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. His feeling of dread leads to happiness because he is thereby made to adopt proper laws for himself. The movement startles the distant and frightens the near, yet he makes the proper sacrifices the same as always. Leg. Shock consists of the trigram for thunder doubled. This trigram also represents movement and the eldest son. The hexagram therefore symbolizes a crash or peal of thunder, and combined with the idea of movement, shows a sudden change taking place in the kingdom. The lesson is the conduct to be pursued in a time of sudden change through an awareness of danger and the proper regulation of oneself. A successful issue is predicted if the dynamic first line can be superior to the two magnetic lines above him. It is in the idea of the hexagram that he should be moving and advancing. Although sensible of the danger, he is confident and self-possessed, so much so that he can calmly perform his religious duties during the prevailing chaos. This is proper behavior for the eldest son, who must eventually assume the duties of his father. Anthony. In the I Ching, shock means being subjected to unsettling events. It also means perceiving and reacting to these events, perceiving in any of these changes that a new set of limits or deprivations has been placed in our life which seems to restrict or even penalize us. This sense of being projected by events into a sort of emotional trap is what this hexagram calls fate. Acknowledgement of this fate or trap and the imperative to find the way out is one of the purposes of shock. As far as the I Ching is concerned, there's only one way out: to undergo spiritual development. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. During sudden changes, adjust your tempo and move ahead, remembering that while conditions may alter, the goal remains the same. The superior man double checks his promises, confronts his weak spots, and adheres to the rules and ideals of the work. The image here is one of sudden dramatic release of energy, power, and force. To receive this hexagram without changing lines, which is how we received it, can refer to almost any abrupt, startling, or unexpected situation. Sometimes it is the oracle's way of saying, surprise! It can also be a kind of reprimand for asking a dumb or inappropriate question. The oracle is shocked by your temerity, ignorance, etc. In such instances, there is often an element of wry humor in the situation, usually at the ego's expense. On rare occasions, it is possible to receive this hexagram as a warning about an upcoming event, which has no bearing on the question posed. Should you receive such an oracle, be extremely vigilant. As always, the advice to the superior man in the image suggests the proper course. A true test of devotion to the work is to maintain one's will under all circumstances. The world may be falling apart around us, but the adept does not ruin the performance of his sacrifice. The ego continues the work regardless of conditions and keeps a cool head under all circumstances. A quote from Proverbs 3:25-26. Have no fear of sudden terror or of assault from wicked men, since Yahweh will be your guarantor. He will keep your steps from the snare. Both Yahweh and Christ are what Jung calls God images, which exist in one form or another in every human psyche, whether it is consciously religious or not. The God image is synonymous with the self, and the implication of the above quotation from Proverbs is that as long as the ego remains devoted to the work, in I Ching terms, maintains the sacrifice, it is under the protection of the self. A quote from Zhuangzi: the perfect man is godlike. Though the great swamps blaze, they cannot burn him. Though the great rivers freeze, they cannot chill him. Though swift lightning splits the hills and howling gales shake the sea, they cannot frighten him. A man like this rides the clouds and mist, straddles the sun and moon, and wanders beyond the four seas. Even life and death have no effect on him, much less the rules of profit and loss. We'll now turn to the Taoist I Ching by I-ming. He's written a very alchemical I Ching commentary in 1796 when he was a Taoist adept. Cold fingertips. 51. Thunder. Thunder is developmental. When thunder comes, there is alarm, then laughter. Thunder startles for 100 miles, but one does not lose spoon and wine. Explanation. Thunder is movement, action, represented as thunder. In the body of the hexagram, one yang is born below two yins, symbolizing the presence of movement within stillness. Here, two thunders combine. From this action, you arrive at that action. From that action, you produce this action. 1,000 actions, myriad acts, are all this one action. Therefore, it is called thunder. This hexagram represents acting so as to proceed on the path, warily practicing introspection. It follows on the previous hexagram, revolution. Revolution involves gaining joy through illumination, refining metal by fire, removing old impurities. Removing old impurities does not mean forgetting things, forgetting the body, extinguishing the mind, and stopping thoughts. It is necessary to remove impurities in the midst of action in order to accomplish the task. This is because the Tao is alive, in movement. It is neither material nor void. We use worldly realities to practice the reality of the Tao, and use human affairs to cultivate celestial virtues. Both striving and non-striving, comprehending essence and comprehending life, the endless work all must be done in the midst of activity. Therefore, there's a path of development in thunder. However, there's inner activity and outer activity. Inner activity means the movement of inward thoughts. Outer activity means the activity of affairs that come up. Inner activity is in the realm of self. Outer activity is in the realm of other. If inner activity is genuine, outward activity will also be genuine. If inner activity is artificial, outward activity will also be artificial. Superior people are careful about what they do not see, wary about what they do not hear. This means being careful and wary about inner activity. If there is no random activity within, there will naturally be genuine activity. The movement of genuine activity may go on all the time without causing any disturbance. Using this to deal with external activity, one responds without minding. Therefore, when thunder comes, there is alarm, then laughter. The coming of thunder means that within stillness there is suddenly movement. Alarm followed by laughter means initial carefulness and subsequent ease. One moment of goodness in people's minds and the mind of Tao appears. This is heaven. One moment of evil in the mind and the human mentality acts. This is hell. Hell and heaven do exist in the world. They are both created in people's minds. It is the good and evil, falsehood and truth of thoughts which distinguish them. When you have thoughts, if you can practice introspection, gradually eliminating bad thoughts and gradually producing good thoughts, after a long time of consistency, thought after thought all return to correct orientation, so that the mind of Tao is ever present and the human mentality does not arise. Filled with living energy, the real self sits peacefully in the center, tranquil and unperturbed, yet sensitive and effective. Whatever comes up, you are cheerful and calm, responding with good humor, not minding at all. Even if thunder startles for 100 miles, still you don't lose spoon and wine. A spoon is for eating, wine represents fine drink. When thunder peals over 100 miles, it is very loud and can easily startle people. If you don't lose your marbles when this happens, this means the vicissitudes of circumstance aren't able to disturb your balance. Because superior people are wary of inner activity, they do not fear outward activity. Being wary of inner activity means nurturing the energy. Not fearing outward activity means not agitating the energy. If one can inwardly nurture energy and outwardly not agitate energy, acting when the time is for action, not acting when the time is for inaction, accompanying the thunder, going along with the time, myriad actions are all genuine activity. There's no impediment in action. Herein lies the developmental quality of thunder. We'll now read the commentary section on Hexagram 51. Thunder, thunder above, thunder below. traveling thunder reverberates. Thus, superior people cautiously practice introspection. Thunder is movement. Above and below is thunder. This represents the movement of the sound of thunder, traveling from here to there, from there to here. When the thunder here stops, thunder elsewhere erupts. Thunder continuing upon thunder is the image of thunder. What superior people see in this is that errant thoughts arise wildly, another thought arising before one thought is ended, thought after thought continuing, like the movement of traveling thunder, reverberating unceasingly. So if people are unable to practice introspection, they will injure nature and reason, abandon the real and enter the false, ultimately destroying their own essential life. Therefore, superior people cautiously practice introspection, striving to cause true mindfulness to grow and errant thought to vanish, not allowing the slightest defect to remain in the heart. This is because good and evil, fortune and calamity depend on the movement of a single thought, which makes the difference between heaven and hell. One can only sustain good thoughts and get rid of bad thoughts if one is able to be cautious before the movement of thought and introspective after the movement of thought, guarding against dangers, aware of perils, not daring to slack off at any time. Sustaining good thoughts and getting rid of bad thoughts until all bad thought is gone and all thought is purely good, ultimately wholesome without any ill, then thought may be active all the time without one being hindered by its activity. That activity returning to the state of total integration with the celestial design. We'll now get a randomly card-drawn chapter from the Tao Te Ching. Possibly a few. Hope everybody is well. I do love you. Oh my God. Take those two. 46 and 57. This translation of the Tao Te Ching is by Jia Fu Fang in Jane English. When the Tao is present in the universe, the horses haul manure. When the Tao is absent from the universe, war horses are bred outside the city. There is no greater sin than desire, no greater curse than discontent, no greater misfortune than wanting something for oneself. Therefore, he who knows that enough is enough will always have enough. Rule a nation with justice. Wage war with surprise moves. Become master of the universe without striving. How do I know that this is so? Because of this. The more laws and restrictions there are, the poorer people become. The sharper men's weapons, the more trouble in the land. The more ingenious and clever men are, the more strange things happen. The more rules and regulations, the more thieves and robbers. Therefore the sage says, I take no action and people are reformed. I enjoy peace and people become honest. I do nothing and people become rich. I have no desires and people return to the good and simple life. Mm.